Okay. And on the next slide, you will see the agenda. So first, we'll give you the project overview. Then we'll proceed with the objectives of the open call. We'll talk about how to apply, and then we'll address all the questions that you post on the chat. Thank you very much. And now I'd like to give the floor to the first speaker, Fausto.
I'm coming. Okay, I hope everybody sees me. Good morning. So my presentation here is just a short introduction to the project. And the name of the project is WeNet, the Internet of Us. And let us briefly review the concept behind WeNet. So the key point of WeNet, and this is why it's called the Internet of Us, is that we really want to interoperate people in the same way as the internet interoperated machines. We do want to set up a new protocol, a new technology which will allow to interoperate people. How do you interoperate people? How do you make people interact in meaningful ways? You just take care of their diversity, the fact that we are all different with different backgrounds, different cultural backgrounds, different geographical backgrounds, and so on and so forth. So ultimately the goal of WeNet is to address the gap which exists now in the current technologies in managing the diversity of people. So ultimately we want to be the diversity aware machine-mediated paradigm for handling social relations. So not only handling, but also exploiting social relations. All the time we exploit other people, our friends, because they help us in doing things we do not know how to do. The idea with WeNet is that we can scale up this to the internet. So that's the key concept, and therefore we need really to interoperate to make people interact despite their diversity. This notion of diversity, therefore, gets instantiated in many different aspects. So first of all, we have to build people profiles so that people can look for people, other people, recognize what they need, the expertise they need from people. And therefore, we need some kind of diversity aware profile building. But then when you have the profile, then you need to be able to search for people despite all their different differences. And then suppose that now we have two people, how do you know that these two people are similar? How do you know that the profile of the person fits what you need? And therefore you need some kind of alignment mechanism so that you can be sure that the profile which was first built, which was then searched, actually fits your needs. And then ultimately, you need some kind of incentive mechanism so that you can actually convince people to help you or to get in a social relation with you. At the core of WeNet, there is really this notion of societal innovation, of making and building a better society, more inclusive, where everybody helps the others. And therefore, there's a foundational principle behind WeNet, which is really all this technology that we're developing should be like ethical and privacy aware. Ethical for ethical reasons, and privacy also because we have to be compliant with the GDPR, which now in force in Europe. So the ultimate goal, therefore, of this of the project WeNet is really to build this kind of infrastructure. I mean, a platform. So WeNet is not about building a specific app, but more to set up a set of technologies which will allow multiple apps to exploit the underlying technologies in terms of profile building, searching mechanism, incentive mechanism, so on and so forth. So given the general idea, then I don't want to go through the details of it. What are the WeNet objectives? First of all, we will have to really develop the underlying science and technology and algorithms. Then based on objective 1, objective 2 becomes really that to building an online platform. This online platform, they're actually going to be made available for you to develop, other people to develop apps or to use existing apps. Then inside the project, we spent a fair amount of time into doing some kind of pilot trials, which were inside universities. And you see later, we involved thousands of participants. So I think we're in a good stage. So we can even say that now the technology and the platform is a good level of robustness. And then ultimately, that what we want this to be just at the beginning of a community that we hope will subscribe to the WeNet principles, will develop more science, more technology, more applications, more innovation on top of the app, and also the research infrastructure. By research infrastructure, we mean the fact that with the data that we collect, we make available for research purposes to the community. So all of this, as we said, based on ethical guidance and principles. So briefly, so far we've run pilots all over the world in many different, pretty much in all continents. A couple of, Africa and Australia are missing. And these are to give an idea of where we are in the project. So given these general ideas, then I thought that the best way to make clear what we mean by WeNet and what we want to do, we thought that the best way to do it would be to show some motivating scenarios, a motivating example. So at the moment, we just talked about enabling social interactions, enabling diversity-aware social interaction, but what does that mean in practice? So let us see. So suppose, for instance, there is a guy whose name is Bob, who really wants to have lunch with someone. Now, right now, if you think about the current technology, what you do is you just send an email or just send a WhatsApp or WeChat message. The major variation of WeNet over the state of the art is that WeNet will allow you to get in contact with people that you do not necessarily know, or that you only know partially. So there's this key idea that WeNet will allow social relation with people you don't know for the good of at least one of the parts, and most likely for doing something useful. So in this motivating example, we are just dealing with the case of using WeNet for the single scenario of organizing a dinner together. So this is a kind of interaction that we envisaged. Now, of course, given these scenarios, now the issue is how to enable this. I mean, how to enable this step from setting up a query to sending the query to the right set of people, because of course, you do not want to send this query to the wrong set of people. And by the way, what right and wrong means here means most likely what best fits your needs at the moment. So how do we do this? Basically, the WeNet technology, you can think as a kind of a set of layers, where each layer we solve a different problem. So now in this presentation, we're going to just go through all these layers one by one. So the first one, is a search and the unknown. As we know that we all have some egocentric network, where by far the biggest one are the people we don't know. So how the first problem that WeNet solves is how do we search the unknown people? This brings back issue like building the profile, the diversity-aware profile, brings up issues like searching for the person with the right profile, brings up an issue like how do I know that the profiles I found are the right one for me, and vice versa for someone accepting the invitation, how does this person know that is interested or is actually you have the right profile for him or her? So the searching and organizing the unknown is actually one major technology for WeNet. Then the second one down the scale is really incentives. Okay, now suppose that we have found the right person. How do we incentivize this person to actually join Bob for dinner? So incentives is another major technology component of the platform. But then moving down, suppose that now finally we got the two people to interact. How do they interact? I mean, they can be from different backgrounds. They can be, one could be Chinese, the other one could be European. Let us assume that they talk the same language, but for instance, one could be with a more scientific background, the other one could be more like humanistic background. So how do we set up an interaction model which will just allow them to interact? That's actually the third item of the WeNet technology. Then, okay, suppose that we actually succeeded in setting up the interaction, but then of course, the interaction is highly contextual. So Bob most likely got in contact with various people, but some people can be busy. Some people can be at work. Some people can be available. Some people may not feel well. So here we need for the technology to enable this kind of interactions, really to monitor the situational context of the people involved, and also use this as a way to influence and drive, at least partially, the kind of interaction to maximize the probability that the interaction gets to the point to actually Bob finding the right person for him to have lunch together. And then the next step down is the setting up the conversational context. For instance, do they know one another? Are they unknown to one another? Are they good friends? Do the interaction modality, the personality of the two people is proper for the interaction? So this brings up to the conversational context, which is another piece of technology developed by WeNet. And then all of these kind of technologies, these are kind of the kind of 5 enabling technologies. They are grounded in 2 major pieces of knowledge and methodology. One is the model of diversity. In this one, we do have a model of diversity. This model of diversity is actually, this model of diversity is actually organized in 2 types of diversity. One we call visible or superficial or objective properties like gender, nationality, age, role. And the other is what we call like deep the properties or like more like functional properties, which really relate to most to what people know how to do on their competencies, personality. And therefore, all the work in WeNet is based on this foundational distinction of the 2 types of diversity. And of course, these 2 types of diversity are actually modeled inside the profile, so that when you have you're searching for a person, you do know that these parameters are actually stored in the system. Then, okay, so this is about the modeling, the person modeling. You're not actually, as you notice, you're not building user profiles, you're building people profiles. Then the last step down is really ethics, which is really how do we make sure that the kind of interactions we do are ethical, for instance, not discriminative. For instance, we want also to be them like GDPR aware and privacy aware. And this is a very long story, but to make a long story short, for instance, in WeNet, we do have a distinction between the private profile and your public profile. Every person has the ability to select how she or he is visible to third parties. And also, of course, the protocols that are envisaged by WeNet do not exploit what we call superficial diversity. So, but we try just to use those parts of diversities which are related more to what people have to do, how people can get, rather than on superficial properties like gender or nationality, and so on and so forth. So as I said, that is, and therefore, like the way diversity is handled is actually a major ethical issue that, as I said, we handle in WeNet, both by handling a public profile different from a private profile, and by also envisaging algorithms and interactions which don't discriminate on superficial properties of people. So this is just one example of many. And of course, people are very much welcome to come up with their own ideas. But here, just to give an idea of the scope or the possible applications. So WeNet, I just provided one slide of other possible scenarios, but that's just a choice. It could be like about doing mobility together, about food. Food is a major issue, or like for time management. For each of them, there are a lot of kind of scenarios, so you can really think of many uses by which you can use the Internet of us to help you. For instance, you may want to get an answer, or you may want to get some help, or you want to make your directions to go home, or like having dinner together, as in the case in the scenario, and so on and so forth. So these scenarios, I do hope that they gave you an idea of the project and the project goals. Here are the partners that I think that we are 15, pretty much from America, Europe, and Asia. And why so? Because also in our experiments, also the technology, we really wanted to try to be diversity aware, also in involving the right people, or not the right people from all over the world, to make sure that we will not be kind of limited in thinking something which force us to make some assumptions about being in Europe or so on. So this is it, and thanks for your attention. I do hope that this was of use for you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Fausto. Now we'll move to the second speaker. Daniela will give us an overview of the objectives of the open call.
So, good afternoon, everybody. I am Daniele Mirandi, the CEO of uHopper, an Italian SME specialized in custom big data analytics solutions. And the reason I'm here today is because within the WeNet consortium, uHopper is in charge of the technology development and integration. Let me start by providing you some rationale behind why we are doing this open call. And I would like to start with a project perspective. So what's in there for WeNet? Why are we putting some money on the table to launch this open call? Well, the main reason is because for us, the open call is a way to maximize the impacts on the project. And we plan to do it along 6 different dimensions. The first one is, of course, by involving additional institutions, be them companies, NGOs, university, research centers, who are not currently part of the WeNet consortium. Second, by exposing a larger number of individuals, communities, and companies to the WeNet vision and tool. Third, by increasing the diversity in terms of the communities of users that we involved in experimental activities. And of course, we will have this diversity reflected in the data that we will collect. By collecting data to feed the WeNet research infrastructure, more on it later on in my presentation, but also, of course, by collecting feedback from early adopters, basically you, on the usability, usefulness, and ethical implications of the WeNet platform and the research infrastructure. Last but not least, and this is more kind of long-term objective, by fostering the creation of a community of innovators around the WeNet platform and the WeNet technology stack. So this was for us, but why should you be interested in taking part in this open call? Well, for 3 main reasons. The first is, of course, funding. I mean, you can get up to 50,000 euros for participating to this open call. Of course, if you're selecting as a winner of it. And we claim no equity if you are a commercial enterprise, okay? So this is just a grant. Second, you get access to technology, the WeNet platform and the WeNet applications, to both online instances, so you don't really have to deploy anything on your servers, but if you want, you can also have access to source code. And this will save you time and money. Third, last but not least, access to knowledge and competencies. So in case you have any issue with, well, the technology, with diversity dimensions, with ethical implications, you can have access to top competencies and knowledge taken from within the WeNet consortium partners or the larger WeNet community. So some key dates and figures. We have a total of 250,000 euros that the consortium is making available to the open call winners. Later on, we will see we have 3 tracks in this open call. So depending on what the type of project you want to propose, you can apply under track A, B, or C. And the maximum amount of funding is slightly different. It's 50,000 for the track A and C, and 25,000 for the track B. Not because track B is less important, but just because, in a sense, it requires a little bit less work and effort from your side. The financial support is meant to cover costs that you actually sustain for executing the project. So personal cost, equipment, travel, plus 25% overhead. And all the accounting should follow the H2020 guidelines. So projects can have a different duration depending on under which track they are presented. For track A and C, we have a maximum duration of 6 months. For track B, we have a maximum duration of 4 months. Core dates. First, submission deadline, end of September, no extensions given. This is a hard deadline, okay? So 30th of September 2021. It will take us about 3 months to shortlist and select the winning proposals, and we expect the projects to kick off their activities on the 1st of February 2022. So before actually going into what's in the open call text, the various tracks, I want to give you some context in terms of the WeNet technology, which is meant to complement what Fausto presented before about the more, let me say, scientific vision and mission of the project. So if we look at it from a very concrete standpoint, there are 3 main components, technological components, technological artifacts, whatever you want to call them, or products, but WeNet is delivering. A platform, a research infrastructure, and a number of applications. These 3 core technology outputs have different expected users, okay? So the applications, well, we do expect individuals and communities to benefit from them, to use them. The platform is actually meant to be used by innovators and developers. And the research infrastructure is for scientists and researchers, okay? So this is kind of 3 target communities of users that we have in WeNet. And let's start to look at what's into each of them. And we will start with the platform. What is the platform? Well, formally, the platform is a set of modular, interoperable, open software components that are designed to enable you to develop and deploy in a fast and easy way diversity-aware applications. So you can think of it as a backend that can power diversity-aware applications. So what you just have to care about the application logic, and all the things related to diversity management are taken care by the backend. Okay, it's something that supports a plurality of applications, so it is generic. It was not designed with a single application in mind, but it is designed and developed to support multiple applications running in parallel. And of course, well, applications by registered developers interact with the platform through a set of purposeful APIs. There is a production version online, which is maintained by the WeNet consortium, which is the one that you will be using in your experiments, okay? So the platform is there. You don't have to worry about it. We are taking care of it. We are making sure that it works 24/7. There is also another type of applications that you can actually use to connect third-party services and data sources to the platform. Well, this, for example, can be used to feed the platform with mobile phone sensors data from mobile app, calendar events, social media streams, open data portals, maybe emails, whatever. And the idea is that these data streamed can be processed by artificial intelligence and machine learning components, which are already part of the platform, to do what? To build a personalized, context-aware experience for the users, okay? So the key point when we talk about diversity is that you need to be able to measure diversity and to leverage it in a coherent way. And the platform actually provides you the building blocks for doing so. Second core output are WeNet applications. We have, I would say, three main applications available at the moment. The first is called Ask for Help. It's a Telegram application, so it's a chat application that allows WeNet users to ask questions to the reference community, to answer open questions, and to approve the best provided answers. This is something that we have already piloted quite extensively, in particular in 5 different countries: Italy, Denmark, UK, Mongolia, and Paraguay. The second WeNet app is the iLog context and behavior monitoring application. It is a mobile app that runs on Android. It's actually already available through the Google Play Store. It has been developed by University of Trento, and it monitors the user context and behavior by accessing, in a GDPR compliant way, data streams from different mobile phone sensors. The third is a diversity survey application, which is a web application, which has been designed to allow the construction of diversity profiles for the WeNet users. It features quite a large number of questions, and it includes some scoring mechanisms for mapping the answers provided by the users to the relevant diversity dimensions in the WeNet user profile. The third one is the WeNet Research Infrastructure, which is a platform that allows, on the one hand, scientists and researchers to access anonymized data from WeNet experiments, but at the same time, it allows experimenters to manage the full research data lifecycle, from the collection of the data, processing, storage, access, and analysis, all in a GDPR compliant way. I'm sorry, I know that I mentioned GDPR a lot of times, but this is really important for us within the consortium. So what are we funding? As I already mentioned before, that was a spoiler, we have 3 tracks. Track A, what we call the app track. And the objective here is to develop a new use case. By new, I mean something that we are not already doing within the consortium, a new application, and run an experiment. So collect data about user behavior and machine-mediated user interactions. The second track, what we call the data track, is about reusing an existing WeNet app and run an experiment, collect the data. So in a sense, in track B, you don't have to develop code. Okay, that is also why the budget is slightly lower. I mean, per funded project, of course, and the duration is shorter. Track B is a fully open track. Okay, so this is a free track. You can propose whatever is relevant for the objectives and the scope of the open call, but it doesn't fit within track A or track B. And we are actually open to suggestions and great ideas from your side. So let's look a little at them a little bit more in detail. Okay, track A application. The idea here, as I mentioned, is to use the WeNet platform for developing a new application that implements a new use case, something not already covered by the consortium. And the app, of course, must use the WeNet platform APIs. Okay, so you have to use our backend, in a sense. You have to bring a community of users. So you have to cater for making sure that you have access to a sufficiently large and diverse community of users, and that you have a concrete plan for engaging them. If you ask how many users should I involve, well, here indicatively, but it's not really mandatory, okay, we think that something like 50 users could make sense. We expect you to run a pilot experiment, so it's not just about technology development. It's you develop the technology, you bring the user, you run a pilot, you collect the data, and you provide this data back to the consortium, back to us, so that we can make it available to other scientists and researchers through the WeNet research infrastructure. Track B is in a sense simpler because, it's about taking one existing or more than one existing WeNet applications, bringing a new community of users, okay, and running an experiment, okay. Here, depending on the type of community and the type of objectives of the pilots, the size of the cohort of users to be involved might actually vary quite a lot. So if you go for quantitative studies where we aim at collecting statistics about diversity or about user interactions, we think that something like 200 can be a good number. If you plan to work on qualitative studies with a very focused niche communities, probably something like 20 to 50 users can be sufficient. And also in this case, we expect you to collect the data and to feed the anonymized data into the research infrastructure. Track C, as I said, it's really fully open. So, as I said, we actually welcome any great ideas, but wouldn't fit within track A or B, but it has to be consistent with the objectives and the scope of the course. Some additional details. Something very important for us is ethics. We follow an integrated ethics approach, and we use participatory and value-sensitive approaches in the design of the technology and of the experimental activities. So we do strongly recommend that you adopt an ethical perspective throughout your project. And please make sure that you explain it into the application, okay? In terms of, which is a little bit more formal, but well, we will provide you access to a WeNet platform, and we will create, if you go for track B, of course, a clone of one existing WeNet application. From the GDPR perspective, you will be the data controller, okay? So you are responsible for all the application of all the principles in the GDPR, informed consents, data minimization, you name it, whatever. And you will have to sign a DPA agreement with the WeNet consortium, with some partners of the WeNet consortium, actually, because we will act as a data controller, okay? Please make sure that this is considered in the GDPR section of the proposal. So you bring the users, you are the data controller, okay? Some more additional details. We really care a lot about collecting experimental data and making them available to third parties in an open and transparent way. So it is actually mandatory if you go for track A and B, but it is strongly suggested for track C as well, to basically feed data into the research infrastructure. You will have to provide us, the WeNet Consortium, data under a specific license, which is a CC Plus license, which is a combination of a standard Creative Commons license, okay, unmodified and verbatim, plus another separate and independent agreement, which in a sense provide us with some flexibility on what we can do with this data and how we can make it available to researchers and scientists, okay? Some additional material, because I know that, what I told you about the WeNet technology is very high level, and if there are technical people hearing the call, or if you have some technical people at home or in the office who need to understand how the hell the WeNet technology works, they will not be happy with what I just said, but we have something more for you available. First, on the project website, if you go under Resources Deliverable D6.3, you can find a document. It's actually quite a short one. I think it's 30-something pages, but describes in details the current status of the platform. It includes links to all technical documents, including specifications modeled according to the Open API standard, links to the open source code, to Docker images, so that you can actually understand exactly what the platform can do for you and what is happening under the hood. Second, a little bit more hands-on, we recently published also an online course that covers the various aspects of the WeNet project and WeNet results. And we have one specific track, which is about how to use the platform to develop diversity-aware applications, including hands-on examples, which is exactly what we're asking you to do through this open call, okay? It is freely accessible at elearning.internetofus.eu, or if you go to the WeNet website, resources, e-learning platform, and what we care about is track 3, the WeNet platform, how to develop diversity-aware applications with WeNet. You can find video tutorials, sample code, self-assessment quizzes, whatever can help you to make sure that before submitting, you have a very good understanding of what WeNet technology can do for you and what, of course, it cannot do. And I am basically done with my presentation. Thanks for your attention. And the control is back to you, Claudia.
Thank you, Daniele, for this presentation. I will now give the floor to Julia, who will cover the application process.
Okay, let me share the screen. Okay, can you see my screen? Okay.
Yes.
So good morning, I'm Giulia Tosato from UHopper, and I will briefly explain the application process and the evaluation process. Anyway, you will, sorry, just a minute. Okay, sorry. Anyway, you can find an accurate description of those processes in the guidelines for applicants made available through the WeNet website. So, first of all, in order to apply to the open call, it is very important to download and read carefully all the supporting material made available through the WeNet website. The supporting material includes the guideline for applicants, the proposal template, and the privacy policy. On the website, you can also find other 3 documents that will be useful in case your organization will be selected: the subgrant agreement template, the final report template, and the financial report template. It is very important to download also those 3 documents and read them before applying in order to understand the expectations after the selection in terms of legal requirements, results of the research, and cost reporting. So after you download all those documents and you read them, you have to check if your organization meets all the eligibility criteria. If it doesn't, of course, your proposal will be discarded. You can find a list of the eligibility criteria on the guidelines for applicants. Here we have a list of the main ones. The first one is the type of applicant. On the guidelines, you will find a list of the eligible types. Please remind that legal entities only are eligible and that the call is not open to individuals. Then the second criteria is the eligible country. The applicant must be legally established in an EU member state or in an associated country or in a third country. In order to have a complete list of the eligible countries, you have to check the updated list published by the European Commission of the eligible countries eligible for funding under H2020 program. Of course, your proposal must be written in English and submitted through the dedicated page of the WeNet website. Proposals submitted through other means will not be considered. Then it is important the absence of conflict of interest. That means that the applicant, but also its legal representative and its shareholders cannot be WeNet consortium partners or be under a contractual agreement with the WeNet partners. You can find the complete list of the WeNet consortium members in the website, so please check it before applying. And last but not least, you don't have to miss the submission deadline, that is the 30th of September. Then, once you are sure that your organization is eligible, you have to prepare your proposal. And in order to do it, it is strongly recommended to read the technical material and to watch the video courses that you can find under the section resources of the WeNet website. And it is very important and mandatory to use the proposal template and follow the guidance text. Now I will exit from the presentation, and I'll show you briefly the proposal template so we can see it together. The first page of the proposal includes the guidance text that is written in blue. Here you can find all the indications related to the mandatory text style, the font size, the format of the page, but also other indication related to the length of the proposal and the length of the single sections of the proposal. The proposal includes 7 sections. So we can briefly see those sections. Here you have the cover page. Please remind to add the name of the applicant institution and the contact email. The first section is related to the overview of the proposal and the track selected. The second section is related to the methodology and the approach. Here you have the blue text is the guidance text, and it is related to the content that is expected for each section. So before sending the proposal, please cancel the guidance text, of course. The third section is related to complementarity with the existing WeNet pilots. The first one is related to ethics and data protection. The fifth is the description of the team. Then we have the project activities and milestones. And at the end, we have the value for money. Once you have prepared the proposal, you have to submit it through the WeNet website, and you have to fill the submission form. We can see here the submission form. The first data you have to add is the name of the organization, then the name of the person that materially is submitting the proposal, the email of that person, the VAT number of the organization. Please, if you do not have the VAT number, add an identification number. The address of the organization and the country. Please remind that the country is one of the eligibility criteria. So here you have to add the country of the legal establishment of your organization, the city, the zip code, the type of beneficiary, how did you become aware of the open call? If you want to add some details, they are welcome. Indicate the track you selected, the title of the proposal, the abstract of the proposal, and here you have to add the PDF file of your proposal. Then you have a list of eligibility requirements that you have to confirm in order to be eligible, the security question and the consent to the privacy. Once you have completed the form, you can submit your proposal, and basically the application is done. Okay, now we can go back to the slides. Here we have 3 important things that have to be considered before applying. First one, the person submitting the proposal must be empowered to represent and commit the applying legal entity. In case 2 different persons will submit an application for the same legal entity, only the proposal submitted by the person empowered to represent the legal entity will be considered eligible. You might be asked to prove that power, but only in case there are 2 submissions from the same legal entity. Then only 1 proposal will be accepted per legal entity. In case 2 or more proposals will be submitted for the same applicant, only the last one will be considered eligible. And the proposal must not violate the IPR of 3rd parties. You will be asked to declare that in the submission form. Then, during the application period, you can send your questions, your doubt to the help desk, but please remember that your questions can be published as FAQ unless you mark them as confidential. Plus, there will be a second webinar on September, and all the presentation and the webinars will be recorded and made available through the WeNet website. What's happened next? Your proposal submission. Here we have the process of the evaluation. Your proposal will be subject to an eligible check. If your proposal is not eligible, you will receive the rejection letter. If your proposal is eligible, it will be subject to a remote evaluation by at least 2 external evaluators bound by a confidentiality agreement, of course. You can find the description of the evaluation criteria on the guidelines for applicants. So please check those criteria. It's very important for the result of your application. If your application scores above the minimum threshold after the remote evaluation, it will be shortlisted and presented for final selection during the panel review. A final ranking will be created, and the list of the selected proposals will be approved by the WeNet consortium. If your proposal will be selected, you will receive an invitation to negotiate. If it won't be selected, you will receive a rejection letter, and you will be put on a waiting list. Okay, here we have a list of the stages that I already described. After the evaluation process and the communication of the results, if your organization is selected, you will be required to prove the legal existence of the organization, to give us the bank account details using a bank account ID form, and to sign the sub-grant agreement. You can find the template of the agreement on the website. The selected applicant will be required to adhere to the WeNet privacy guidelines, and this is a part of the contract. And here we have the indicative dates of the open call, the launch, the submission deadline, that is the 30th of September, the end of the evaluation period, it's the end of December, and the end of the negotiation process, it is the end of January 2022. The expected kickoff of the project is the 1st February. So we have a month for the negotiation process. So be sure that you agree with the sub-grant agreement before applying, because modifications to the sub-grant agreement will not be allowed during the negotiation process. Okay, last thing, the reporting, it's what is expected at the end of the project. You will find on the WeNet website the final report template and the financial report template. Remind that you have to report all the costs according to H2020 rules. And this is a condition for the payment of the fund. Okay, that's the end of the presentation. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Giulia. We have a couple of questions from the audience. The first one is, who owns the intellectual property rights of the final product?
the intellectual property rights remains on the applicant.
Okay, thank you. And now we have a more technical question. Ilaria asked, is it possible to know something more about the apps at technical level in order to think about possible experiments? For example, she's interested to know if the apps or the WeNet system use machine learning or other artificial intelligence technologies.
Let me take up this one, Claudia. So Ilaria, I actually suggest you to have a look at deliverable 6.3, in which you can find all the details about the platform components, in particular the ones that use artificial intelligence and machine learning, and also about the Ask for Help application and the iLog application. If you still have doubts, you can always contact us at the open call at internetofus.eu email, and we will be happy to provide you additional details. Thanks.
There is one more question. Is there room in the call for partnerships between startups and NGOs?
Okay, I can probably try to answer this one. In principle, yes, but the application have to be done by one single institution. So it's actually up to you to find the arrangements for working together with, well, either the startup if you are the NGO, or the NGO if you are the startup.
And one more, more on the financial level, what kind of expenses will be accepted?
Maybe I can answer to this question. Will be accepted the personal costs, but also other costs if they are they have a justification according to the project and the proposal.
Thank you. Those are all the questions we received so far. If any of the participants would like to ask, you can paste your question in the chat right now. Okay, I don't see any more questions. I believe we can close the webinar. It has been recorded and it will be made available on the website, and the questions can be asked also later on.